Hello, flower friends. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and we had a small catastrophe. I was locked out of my building. I couldn't get into my tripod, so here I am. Anyway, crazy doors. Friends, if you've never joined me for Ask a Flower Farmer before, this is how it goes. For the next 30 minutes or so, I will do my best to answer your questions, but you must post your questions down in that bubble with the question mark in it. That way, if you posted it in the comments, it just kind of scrolls away and I never see it again. So if you have questions about flower farming, cool flowers, seed starting, flower farming business, whatever you got, bring it on. I'll be happy to give it a good try to actually answer it. So what's going on here on the farm? First off, we are finally getting a deep, long rain here in southeastern Virginia. We've been dry since like midsummer last year. Not completely dry, but just not a lot of moisture. And my cool flower garden that was fall planted has just really been limping along, you know? I mean, it's just, you just can't provide, you can't do for your garden what rain does, right? And so we are just really kind of soaking up, literally watching the rain on all of my cool flowers. And I'm just really grateful that our beds for the very early spring planting of cool flowers, you know, that's the second optimal planting window for these cool season hardy annuals to be planted in to like take full ride on the cool flower concept, which the cool flower concept, Cool Flowers is my book. If you've never, if we haven't met before. And again, I want to say, be sure you post your questions down in the bubble with the question mark because they just keep zooming by and I'll never see them again. I am so grateful that we got those very early spring beds ready. And so the second planting window is what we call very early spring. And I have two whole big beds out there just ready and waiting. And I want to step out of the way. You know, being a retailer in addition to being a flower farmer is got its own set of struggles too. And we have just received what is going to be our new tabletop grow light, y'all. And that's what's behind me here. It is so kind of compact. And so this thing is only 24 inches long. But these are some of the cool flowers that are going to be planted. It holds 240 plants underneath this little teeny light that you could put anywhere. But we just have tons of stock ready to go out there. And so I am pretty happy that the beds are ready because here's the classic thing that I hear from people. Oh my gosh, the very early spring planting window, well, my goodness, my soil is so wet and sometimes it's frozen or worse yet, it's covered in snow during that time. Well, friends, that's why you had to prepare your beds for very early spring last fall. And you learn that quickly when you start gaining the incredible benefits of planting cool flowers or cool season hardy annuals in very early spring. And I'm just grateful that this year, our beds are made, ready, and waiting. You know, our Lysianthus plug should be landing here any day now. And I did order, I can't remember what else. I ordered 2 other cool season hardy annuals. I forget what they are, to do a test grow. And, you know, I'm just pretty happy with all of this rain. So some people aren't familiar with the cool flower concept. You need to get the book. There's 2 books, actually. Cool Flowers, the book, is an easy read. You'll read it in 2 days. It just explains the primary concept. That book was written for the home gardener, but it's easily applicable to flower. You just ramp it up, right? And then my second book, the Cut Flower Handbook, well, not my second, it's actually my third book, my most recent book, includes cool season hardy annuals as well as warm. If you want a book on everything you need to know to grow a cutting garden, whether you're a home gardener or a flower farmer, here you go. Here's the book. Oh, I thought it was right here. It's not. Oh, here it is. I have to show you guys because if you're not familiar, this book is totally beautiful. This is the PDF download you get when you buy it from me. This book has everything that you need. Everything. Look how it's beautiful imagery. And I'm just so proud and happy to say that my sis, I have to show you all this. Look at these beautiful images. I sit and just look at this book sometimes. Look how hopping those pictures are. And anyway, so that book will hook you up with everything you need to know. And the most important thing that I get questions about all the blooming time is, and I understand the struggle. See, y'all have to remember, I've been flower farming for 27 years. I have had so many screw-ups, tests, learned so much. It is the succession planting and weaving together, the warm and the cool, and just having abundant harvests from as early as late as possible, all outside in a garden, right? Because you know I have no hoop or greenhouses. So that book will do it. That was my real goal with that book, is for people. I mean, you can read a book, a basic book, and figure out how to grow a certain flower. But it's planting it at the right time, getting the longest stems, and the most abundance, most disease resistant, and then to have cool flowers. And as cool flowers are ramping up, the warm stuff starts. And as the warm stuff really gets ramped, the cool flowers peter out, and it's time for them to go, and you make room for another warm season planting. Y'all, it's like a dance that is amazing, and that book will teach you all about it. So now we got some questions. Didn't get larkspur direct seeded. Any tips for indoor starting? Have the seed in the freezer? No, I don't know any. Very few people have luck starting larkspur inside, and it's because it needs such a swing in temperatures to help it break dormancy. That's why it is such a perfect fall sower. It likes cool nights, like 50-degree nights, and 70-degree days. That's what sends the signal to the seed to break dormancy. So if you can do that, more power to you. In my experience, it is going to bloom short if you try to plant it now. So, you know, sometimes, and I think I talk about this in the book too, sometimes you just have to say, darn it, put it on your calendar for the fall. You know, sometimes it's just not worth wasting the space, the time, the gut juice, and the morale drag of having a failed crop, which you probably knew when you planted it, it wasn't going to work out as great. Do you know what I mean? It's like, is it that important? You know, for me, with our florists, they expect my larkspur to be 48 inches tall. If it's not 48 inches tall, they can buy that mess from the wholesaler. So sometimes I just have to say, you know what? Darn it, Lisa, why did you not do that on time? And in fact, I'm suffering from that right now. We didn't direct sow. We direct sowed later than we normally do, in my gamble of trying to keep stuff from getting too big as we head into fall. Well, winter came early, or actually on time, for once in 4 years. And my direct sown seedlings, my Nigella and my larkspur both, weren't as big as I'd like for them to be going into winter. And they're doing okay. This rain, I'm so grateful, is really gonna make a big difference. But let us know how that goes for you. But that is what I've learned after all these years. Sometimes it's just not worth coming in late, wasting the energy, time, and resources, and then you don't get something that's really great. Just kick it to the curb, write it on your calendar, and do it on time for this coming year. Sorry, I just hit wave to somebody. Don't know how I did that, but anyway. All right. I have forgotten, since I have never planted Tweedia. Is it a cool flower, and when do you plant it? Fall or very early spring? First off, I am just so thrilled that so many of y'all know about fall planting. It's too funny. Where Suzanne and I, my sister and I, Wednesdays, I have 3 what we call maker days. Maker days are days that I create content and work on that kind of stuff. You know, 2 of the days I'm primarily here by myself on the farm, where I, write blogs, make social media posts, make, whatever, right? Well, Wednesdays is another maker day, but my sister's here with me because we work on projects together. And we are working on a project, which I can't tell you about yet, and y'all are going to just croak when it comes to pass. And it won't be for months and months. But we have to constantly remind ourselves that while I know and many of you know all about the cool flower concept of how to plant cool season hardy annuals, 99% of the world has no idea what we're talking about. And it just makes my heart swell when you guys comment and it's obvious that you're familiar with the cool flower concept. So thank you, thank you. So Tweedia, which is a fairly new cool flower to me, probably for the last 3 years, is a cool flower. It's a cool season hardy annual. And there's many more cool season hardy annuals out there. I just don't know who they are. None of us do, because they've never really been represented like this is a warm season tender and this is a cool season hardy annual. That just kind of never fell off the radar decades ago. So I have done both, and I have to go out there and look. I went to go do that the other day, actually. We, for the last 2 years, fall planted and very early spring planted, which I did this year too. That's the plan. The fall planted the last 2 years, just kind of suffered. But honestly, it was operator. We just planted it where it didn't get any extra TLC, which is what we try to do when we're trialing a new plant. And so I just really didn't want to judge it. This year, it really got planted on time, nice size transplants. And I will tell you, it came through that really polar blitz that we had here in southeastern Virginia, just down in the teens for us, which is pretty cold for us. It was covered with a single layer, actually may have been a double layer of lightweight row cover, and they were still alive 2 weeks ago. And we have more to plant for our very early spring. But I will tell you, it does both the plantings, the very early spring really does well. Lane and I just recorded a seed talk talking about Tweedia. That'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks, so keep your eyes peeled for that. You'll find it on our website under the podcast or on podcast apps everywhere. And it grows really well. Definitely net it, because even though it's short when it starts, once it starts elongating, it does really well. So I don't know where you are, but I'm in 8A, and fall planting, what I may come to the conclusion of, it's one of those that you can fall plant, but do you need to? If it kind of is iffy for survival. So you'll have to figure that out. Does Nigella need to be thinned if it's self-seeded last year and it's almost a mat of seedlings? Yes. If you want cut flowers, you do. Funny, we were just talking about this too. So we were looking at, must have been given a program or something, making some kind of recording, looking at a beautiful bed. Actually, I think it was me and Lane doing another seed talk, looking at a beautiful mat, like you're talking about, of Bells of Ireland, because I oversow Bells of Ireland because we want a great stand. And we were talking about the fact that, as hard as it is, if you want tall stems and for it to be healthy, you have to thin it. Now, Nigella, it really depends on what variety, and sometimes the stuff that reseeds may not come back true, but I would definitely give it each individual plant at least 3 to 4 inches, in all directions. And that'll allow it to grow up and grow tall. When it's a mat like that, they'll tend to stay short, start getting kind of yellowy. They don't look bad when they're babies, but once they start growing up, they're elbowing each other and duking it out like kids in a high school hallway, right? So yeah, I would definitely thin it. Doesn't matter whether it reseeded. If your last frost date is April 1st to April 28th, and I'm counting back 6 to 8 weeks from the 28th or the 1st, I've never heard of such a wide window for a last. So what you're trying to establish is one date, which we call, and is kind of referred to in the horticulture world as your last expected historic frost date. And I was just looking at that. That thing we're working on, trying to figure out how people can find their dates. If you just put in a search engine your zip code and just say last historic expected frost date. Historic means you don't want last year's date or the year before that. You want an average of the last 10 years. That's the only way you can do it. So you need to so I would say yours is probably April 15th, which is mine. And our planting window is Valentine's Day, this Friday, till March 1st. That's the optimal. And of course, we can fudge it up. Like, for instance, I would have maybe liked to have planted some of these cool flowers, especially some of this stock. We have so much stock to plant, y'all. And it would have adored this freezing cold rain. It would have really liked it. So that's what you need to do, is put that zip code in and get a date and then count back 6 to 8 weeks. But I would guess you're probably similar to me. And a Valentine's Day till March 1st. So this is a good question. Why did you discontinue Pro Cut Premier sunflowers? You know, since I've joined the ranks, how long has it been? 20 years ago now. Is that for real? 2005. I started flower farming in 1998, launched our retail store, our online garden shop in 2005. That is 20 years this year, y'all. I hadn't even realized that. You know, being on this side of the fence now, you just don't even, I never had any idea. And it's because I remember that particular sunflower, because it's a quick one, I think. If I remember right, it's like 45 days from seed to bloom. We couldn't get it. It's not available. Or it gets available, it goes in and out of availability, and that makes us and customers crazy. You know, there's nothing people hate worse than out of stock. And trust me, Lane, who is our seed manager, that's where Seed Talk, the podcast, grew out of, it makes her nuts, because we're just constantly buying and packaging seeds. Unlike, I know a lot of big companies, they're packaging this year already for next year's seed packets. Sales, I guess you would say. We do more of a real-time thing. I mean, we have packers that are packing constantly. It's like Lane has such a great system. The minute she has a tag number. When we get to that tag, she sends out more seeds. So we have a lot of great rotation. But the Premier sunflowers, which I grew several times as a trial, they were great. There's a lot of great seeds. You just can't get them. It's like, if we don't get White Swan marigolds soon, I'm going to lose my mind. Not only do I love them, they have no fragrance, basically. They're buttercream color. They're amazing, but their seed is so inconsistently available that just makes us nuts. And we can't buy but so many at one time, because you don't want to sit on seed, right? So thank you for asking that question, but it's not because we wanted to discontinue, is what I'm getting around. It's like this whole grow light situation. We've lost grow light suppliers almost for every year for the last 3 years. They go out of business, and it's because of all the knockoff cheap stuff. And it makes it really, really hard. So I won't bellyache about being a retailer anymore. We absolutely love it, but it has got its challenges too. All right, y'all, I have answered all your questions. I don't think that has ever happened. So I want to remind everybody that you can join me Friday. I do a live shopping show. Just think QVC with Lisa selling her stuff. That's basically what it is. We have a phone app. It's called Gardener's Workshop Shop. It's free. You can get it from your phone's app store. And we do a live show on Fridays. And that show was born out of us having tons of flowers harvested from the fields. And I wanted to show you guys what the flowers look like of the seeds that you're buying from us. And just showing it and talking about it and giving it some tips. I'm getting hot and cold, y'all. And so this show happens on Fridays at 12 o'clock. And inside the app, you can participate in the show by the giveaway. You can enter for that. You can talk with the other live viewers in the comments. And you can watch replays. It's really a lot of fun. In fact, we have almost as much shopping happening on our phone app store, because it's separate from our website, as we do our website. It's pretty phenomenal. Well, it's just convenient, right? I mean, it's made for a phone, so it's super easy, and there's a video on every product that you can watch. But every week we have a theme, and I apologize, I do not know what the theme is for this week. Last week was tool time. I think this week it might be seedling care, maybe. But we always offer growing information. So during this time that we don't have fresh flowers, we often, look at this wall. These are all of our leftovers from last year that have been dried. And look, there's more over there. Wait a minute, I'm getting there. See, there's another wall over there. These are all of our leftovers, and what we've learned is that they make for us to show you guys during the winter months when we don't have fresh flowers, so you can see what it looks like dried. I'll show you. Here's a dud. I never would dry this one again, but it's so helpful, right, to actually see it. Oh, we got some questions now. Can you discuss how raised beds are formed using your tractor? Thank you. I would love to. So raised beds, the types of raised beds that we use are mounded raised beds, not beds with a frame around them. Like framed beds are typically what gardeners do. There are some farmers that incorporate those into their bigger growing operation also, but we use mounded beds. That means it's just soil mounded up, right? And for 12 years before I had a tractor, I did the same practice, but I did it, when I say by hand, that meant I was using a walk-behind tiller and a shovel and a wheelbarrow and 2 other gals. And we would build beds using those pieces of equipment. And then 12 years in, 2012, Steve and I just looked up what year my tractor was the other day, so I had the answer for this. I never was clear. So my John Deere is a 2012. And when I bought that John Deere, we bought a bed layer, is what it's called. Some people call it a mulch layer. And that implement scoops the soil and forms the bed, lays the irrigation and lays the film, whether that's plastic or we use biodegradable film here. Works beautifully. Mine is a mini layer, and that means it's a more compact version. And it came from Rainflow, and it's a 2400, I think is the number of it. Anyway, love that thing. So I've had the bed layer and the tractor, what is that, 13 years? 12 from 25? And I'm telling you, the tractor paid for itself the very first year I had it. With our sunflower rotations, paid for the John Deere, which it wouldn't have been possible to do the sunflowers the way we did without the John Deere. But the John Deere, the bed layer, and the tiller was like $35,000. 1 year I paid for that with our sunflower rotation. I mean, I just can't even tell you how great it is. And so you can take that to the bank for sure. And you remember, I'm a small farm in the middle of the city. Because people, that's one of the things I teach about in flower farming school. It's like, there are so many myths out there, y'all. So many myths. Small farmer can't make a tractor pay. You don't have to have a tractor, but I'm old. I'm 64 now. I wouldn't still be doing this if I didn't have equipment. Anyway, so yeah, more power to you. How do you make sure your irrigation isn't leaking under your Bio 360? That's a great question, especially since I'm married to a plumber and we're definitely into leaks around here. So what she's talking about is we put irrigation underneath. No matter what kind of film you use, you should put irrigation underneath. That's where it's best uses and best protected from varmints and that kind of stuff. I mean, the only way I would ever, if you have a leak that's worth detecting, the ground's going to get soft. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to have a soft spot sometimes. You know, I can remember once walking down a garden pathway, and it was in the summer. So my pathways in the summer have vegetation growing on them, just whatever grows up. It looks like grass and weeds, and we mow it. So you can't really see puddles of water, right? I can remember I was walking down a pathway to go cut at the end of the bed or something, and all of a sudden it was like I fell into a rabbit hole. My leg went way down, and it was because there was a leak there, and the soil was so wet. So there really is no way other than, seeing the water or discovering the water. And if it's not a leak worth detecting, that means you just don't know it's there. So. How do you adjust planting with snow? Will snow crush freshly planted seedlings? So that's a great question. So I've never, we have planted through snow many times through the years. So that's, the gift of very early spring planting, because we use the biodegradable film. Literally, there's a video somewhere that I cannot find of me using a push broom, like a 30-inch wide broom, in the heat of the afternoon where it wasn't warm, but the sun was shining, right? Of me using that push broom to push snow off the surface of our beds. And the reason I did it, because I was very careful to not rip the Bio 360, right? And that worked beautifully. If you're talking about snow that comes after you plant it, I mean, that would be like a marriage made in heaven. Snow is very insulating, and then as it melts, it's a slow water. So I don't think I'd really worry about if it did bend your plants, they'll pop back up. I think they'll be all right. As long as, if you're expecting snow and you're going to plant, you probably ought to at least harden off those seedlings. Sometimes we say we don't harden off because as soon as I plant them in the garden, we hoop and cover them, right? Well, if it's going to snow, that may not be the case. So you might want to just prepare them for that freeze down a little bit better, but I wouldn't be afraid of snow. Regarding irrigation, how many drip line hoses per rows of flowers using a 3-foot bed method? I'm going to tell you, just like I tell my flower farming students, I do not know, because it depends on your type of soil, and the place you need to lean on is your irrigation supplier. That's part of the customer service that they offer. We like using either dripworks.com or berryhillirrigation.com. One is on the West Coast, one is on the East Coast. They have amazing tutorials, and one of the things that they address in there is how to figure out how many drip lines. And it also depends on how long your beds are. And so that's not a question that you can ask another friend or another flower farmer. It depends on what you have and what you're doing, what your flow is of water available, what pressure, and they tell you how. And so y'all have to know that my husband owns a plumbing company, or actually he just retired December 31st. Can y'all believe it? Oh my gosh. Third generation has taken over. But all these years of me doing irrigation, Steve never, ever got involved. The only thing he did was to actually put hose bibs, the thing you turn the water on, underground copper pipes. He did that, but he never really helped me, or I didn't need him to help me with all the irrigation for the garden. It's all push together, turn and twist. I learned it all from watching tutorials on those irrigation websites. There's some things you just don't have to know. And you have to lean on certain people because you can't remember it all. It's like, I don't try to figure out soil tests. I lean on the people that I got the soil test from, or from the farm supply store that I'm going to be buying amendments from. Here's my test. What does it mean? We have to get over going down these deep rabbit holes, right? And there's great opportunities to get help, but you have to have a relationship with these people. You go to the people that you're buying from, right? So that's what I would recommend. You have to get in pace with an irrigation supplier, and they will lead you down exactly. And if you use either of those two sources that I told you, and I'm sure there's others, you can rely on what they tell you. Oh, you're welcome. Question: when growing stock, because they are day length sensitive, do you set your timers for less than 16 hours a day? No. Everything for me is set on the same 16 to 18 hours of light a day. And they bloom usually for us around Mother's Day. And the other thing is, we try to get our cool season, or all of our transplants, right? We try to kick them out the door as quickly as we can, meaning we're not hemming and hawing over them inside. We don't start early. We start on time or later so we can get them out. So I have never changed my day length on lighting for stock. So hope that helps. All right, friends. So it's 1 o'clock. I'm out of here. I got to get ready for my the Flower Farmer Club, my membership, which I have Sewing Circle with them at 2 o'clock. And we're going to be going over some seed start and stuff. So if you're a club member, I hope to see you at 2 o'clock Eastern time inside our membership app. And I want to tell you all this, and then I'm going to sign off. So we have 2 apps. We have the shopping app, which I told you about. They're both free. The shopping app is where you can get to our app garden shop, which is just a different experience. It's just the way it's set up. And then that's where the live shop and show happens every Friday at 12 noon Eastern time, as well as you can watch the replays, right? We have a second app, and it's called Learn. It's Gardener's Workshop Learn app. And in that Learn app is where if you've ever purchased any courses from us and you use the same email to log in, all your courses will be there. And if you're a club member, the community is right there. But even if you're not one of our students or a club member yet, and I'm inviting you to always be interested in doing that, we have a free course for you. Anybody that downloads our Learn app, there is a free online course sitting in there waiting for you. It's about building a trellis tunnel. You know, that 50-foot long, beautiful tunnel that runs down the middle of my garden. I made a course showing you how we did that. And that, just for downloading the app, that's our little thank you. And if you have our apps, we absolutely would be so grateful if you would go to your phone's app store and review it. Tell people, you know, give it a 5-star review and say it's a great app, and then people aren't so worried about, you know, how it is. You don't want a glitchy app, and they aren't. They're amazing. So, friends, until we meet again, club members, I'll see you at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Ciao, friends.